PIcc Alliance for Digital Pathology Steering Committee meeting. It's March 24th. It's my son's birthday, so I have a great time today. And I'm super excited to present to you a full packed agenda with a ton of cool updates. I see Ulla has just joined. As you all know, in our last meeting, we've done a lot of sort of solicitation of new projects, website content. So I think for the first, probably 10, 15 minutes, we want to share sort of the agenda for today's meeting. I don't know, Ulla, if you can drop that in the chat, and then everyone has that sort of as an outline. But I wanted to take the opportunity to make sure that we get over sort of some of those web page changes. I don't know, Ulla, do you want to drive this or should I?
You can take the wheel if you'd like.
Can take the wheel? Okay, I thought you were going to say that, but now let me just see if I can share my screen, and then I show you kind of the new look of the website, and then we can briefly go over this. So can you guys see my screen? Hopefully, good. So yeah. Perfect. So first of all, like sort of new logo, this brings you back to the homepage, and then there's somewhat about PIcc. Several people say that they want to know, they want to tell someone about the Alliance, to just be able to take this, copy and paste it in an email, that we're a regulatory science initiative, what we're aiming for and what we try to do. So this is kind of like the landing page. And then the menus are, in this case here, the various ones. These have been largely remained the same, but we're very excited to have a working groups subpage now, which should enable a lot of people to see sort of the different, and currently there's 9 work groups. The newest one, the trainees group, is here, and then some of these work groups have their own content and can update this on a regular level. If you're, for example, particularly interested in machine learning or model creation or continuous learning, that would allow you to go and share that content with people who have not known or not learned about the PIcc and what we do. So I think truthing and validation will look sort of like this. It has a brief executive summary. It has, we organized this at what's the need, what's the problem, and these problem descriptions are collectively and collaboratively developed by the various domain experts. We have sort of a value proposition part, and then a focus of the work group, as well as currently ongoing projects. So I know Brandon joined the call, so happy to help him as well. But this is sort of like a summary coming typically from the project leads. There are also something for this group, relevant publications that are coming soon. And then there are news and updates related to this, and then the group leads for sort of contact information. So this sort of principal structure is the same for each one of these work groups. But as you know, time is limited. So some people are a little bit further. And if we go, for example, to some of these, the relevant publications we haven't done yet, but these sort of individual steps, this is completely in control. So some of it is relatively simplified. Some people focused more on the update. So please feel free to map to this and check out the individual groups. For example, here, pre-analytics, you see there's a lot of like relevant publications here. So what the intent is number one, to give people an idea who is leading the various groups, but then also like what is sort of a top level overview of some of the key publications. If you want to get, for example, work or support for the pre-analytics group or want to contribute, this is sort of a first level stop on where this goes. Briefly, because I know there's a lot of new people on here, I wanted to show you 2 or 3 other things here that have changed. So under presentations, so we started in July 2019, and each one of these individual sort of blog post icons refers to one of our meetings. So you can see here we had a total of 11 sort of main meetings, and with each one of these meetings, it goes back to the original content, and all presentations, PowerPoints, or videos, for example, from our last Pi collaborative community meeting, like all the content here, including the relevant documents, is present. So for example, we had a brief discussion about the recent federal notice In the meantime, there's already 5 important statements made. One was recently added by CAP. I see Kevin is on the call, and I know some other representatives from CAP are present on the call. I just thought I wanted to share this, that this is sort of like the go-to resource. So if you feel you have anything to add, or you want to add your paper to a certain subset or subgroup, I think it's a fairly clean new organization, and I'm very proud about these working groups. And I don't know if there are questions about this, or comments, or other suggestions.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Ula. I think this gives us a nice format platform to build off of, for sure.
Oh, thank you. I mean, the obviously relevant publications that come up with a way to say like how to account for some of the ones that we contributed, right? Maybe we highlight those in red, or put a little tulip beside it, or just to see how we contribute in whatever means of possible ways here. But I think this should hopefully make, if you're working on machine learning and you want to add a regulatory sciences project, this is just actually a platform to enable networking, and just to make your life a little bit easier to say, hey, I just copy and paste. If you want to know about the key problems for financial sustainability of digital pathology, you can just go and copy and paste that and use it in your communication related to the Alliance, or just, in life, private and public in general. One thing that came up with the work groups that I wanted to briefly discuss, I wanted to just be mindful of time, so we're still here. Sort of the one element here on the agenda, I think you have it, is leader contact information. If you haven't provided that, or if you want to become a co-lead or a key lead for one of these work groups, just email Ulla, put your name up for this, and give your contact information, and that would work. The second item which came up, and I think that may be of interest to some of the people from companies or industry, I think it should be in all of our interests, but there was a question of who will deal with privacy or security questions. This came up from 4 different folks. Once it came up with Esther and Kingsley Ibare about the standardization group for research, how to standardize data, and how to strip, for example, personal health information for generating some data sets. The other part was during the group sessions, one of the DICOM discussion points was, can we flag certain elements as, higher security levels should be easily identified and stripped. And there's obviously the positive in or negative out confirmation approach. And then 2 companies have asked, well, where's the privacy work group? And we don't have one. So I don't know, I wanted to briefly discuss this with the group if that seems of interest. The part that we may add here is obviously GDPR versus HIPAA and PHI, because there's a lot of states in the United States that have their own little, privacy law, or they start revising it. And GDPR compliance versus HIPAA compliance is obviously a big deal. I think, Brandon, we're very well about this. So question is whether we should at least propose a work group like this, or solicit some members. I know, Jithesh, you probably have also an opinion on this from an MDIC side, because I know you have done a lot of work on this.
Yeah, we haven't specifically done anything on GDPR or HIPAA, but privacy and security are usually part of our existing project tracks or even bioethics. So it's not considered as a separate one, it's integrated to specific projects. Having said that, if for this group, if we have enough enthusiasm and specific ideas, we should definitely consider as an independent work group.
I mean, I think we can draw from your experience, right? You have a lot of domain experts in that realm. I would assume that all researchers are interested in it, but they have no tools yet to easily accomplish that. I know Brandon has always been looking for additional slide sets for the HTT project, but, you know, privacy concerns, local IRB issues are always, you know, one of the key elements here. So I just wanted to throw this out here. If you are interested in this, maybe you can send a brief note just saying, hey, I would be interested in joining a first work group call on privacy and security to Ulla, and then we get a meeting set up depending on the interest. I know of 4 people that are interested in it, and we see how that overlaps with other work group aims. But I think this could be, you know, project versus work group is sort of the question. I think it is implied by what I just said on the, you know, website update. So if you think you have published something, and I know many of you have, that ties into one of these work group goals, just take a minute, read through the executive summary, and please feel free and please, no hesitation. This, you know, I know some people are sort of don't want to self-feature themselves, but, you know, I think it is extremely important because people who are interested in regulatory science usually contribute in ways and means to this overall aim. So please provide your publication, send us the PDF or just the PubMed ID, and we will get it in the appropriate work group. And if you think that, you know, this is sort of available or relevant for 2 or 3 work groups, don't hesitate. I think we're actively soliciting publications, white papers, concept papers, reviews, whatever you think is important for those aims. And I believe that that will increase the value and relevance of the website. And also, it's probably easier to say to your collaborators, hey, I'm working on machine learning, check out this aim, and you can just send a link and all the papers are there in one spot. So I think that's sort of the key element for the website. Ulla, did I forget anything? Any other topics here? No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Joe?
Yes?
I'll go ahead and ask, you know, I think we're a little thin on leadership of some of these work groups, as we all know. And I'm happy to kind of support them up, or actually you're doing all the supporting without some of those concrete leaders. And people are double listing in some of those roles. You know, I don't know if that's really, I don't know whether it is the right strategy or not, but at some point it's not really worth it to try and prop something up that doesn't have a, you know, someone who's championing it and some kind of project behind it. I mean, it doesn't have to have a project, but information for sure, and someone championing. So I guess I'm just curious how we would want to manage that.
Absolutely. This is a fantastic volley to the next item point on the agenda, which is how this will work, right? And so, first of all, I think there's a little bit of confusion about the work groups and projects. And I really wanted to explain this in a concrete example because, you know, regulatory science is so nuanced. This morning, I had the pleasure, and I will introduce her momentarily, to talk to Dr. Kim Blenman from the oncology at Yale, and she's on the call today. And she asked me exactly this question. And I wanted to use this sort of example of what we did there as how this will work. So assume you have a project. In her case, it was, hey, we want to look at what could be a regulatory framework for biomarkers from morphology, meaning from H&E slides. In this case, it was related to tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. And I'll let her talk in a few minutes. I just wanted to show what we did. So the part that is the aim of this would be, she will be the PI, she will work with her collaborators on this, but she can get input from this entire group by making it a project. So what happens, or what you can do is relatively straightforward. There's the link to projects. And you know, there are a few ongoing projects here. And at the very bottom, there's a link to project proposals. And in this page here, for the project proposals, there is a so-called blueprint. And in this case, you can download it. It's a Word document. Please take a look. So what we did, and it didn't take long, is to go through, this is a half page just outlining, you know, the interest was this. There's a couple of questions that you have to do. And in this case, you know, one reference to just give us a broad, quick outline of what, in this case, Kim is interested in. And we will then set up sort of on the website a project, just like you saw this here, so that she can take the project here and link it out to other people and or present it here to this group and get input from other folks. For example, patient advocacy, for example, the FDA, for example, industry members and other people. Kim, do you want to briefly explain what you're looking for? And then, you can get obviously contacts and also maybe describe briefly what the process looked like.
So actually, all of that is actually quite interesting. So thank you so much, Joe, for allowing me the time to just speak very briefly about, what our interest is. And so the bottom line is that, I am part of the TILS working group as well. So this is the immuno-oncology biomarker working group. And we are interested, as most of the group is made up of pathologists and oncologists, we're interested in trying to put together sort of a framework or a model to have tumor infiltrating lymphocytes as defined by our wonderful H&E pathology slides as potentially a useful biomarker, just like how we would use PD-L1 or something like that, other nature, some sort of molecular biomarker. But as we've talked about actually a little bit here as well, is that there's really no path forward. And as we're trying to figure out, what is the best model or the best framework to try to, place this into, I was thinking about this group and how, we have so many different types of groups and individuals involved in this process, from the quote unquote regulatory groups to patient advocacy to industry and various government officials. I think that this would be a really nice group to try to help us to try to shape that into something that sort of like makes sense, that we can approach regulatory agencies about here's something that does this make sense to frame this in this way for someone to want to make this as a biomarker, so to speak. And then we'll build on things like sort of the basic morphology from the actual pathologists themselves to actually doing machine learning, AI type tools to actually help to do the analysis and things like that. And so I'll stop there because I know we have some sort of time limits, but that's the broad scope, the broad scales of what I'm really interested in.
Thank you very much. Do you mind making a comment on how difficult it was to fill out this form?
It was a matter of maybe 2 to 3 minutes, if that, and I'm being very generous. It was really, really simplistic. It's fantastically very easy to find on the website. And it was very easy just to compose. As you can see, it's a couple of words, a sentence at max for most of the things. So it's very easy.
So to come back to your question, Brandon, I think this is sort of a typical, let's say, onboarding of a project, then obviously would reside with the domain experts, i.e. in this case, Kim and team. But it would be an approach to get additional people on individual projects. So I think what we're maturing through right now is, apart from just getting a leadership role, is that we're looking for people who actually want to do the work and have the domain knowledge to actually contribute. And that part, I believe, is sort of a natural evolution. We get to another point that I don't want to, steal away from the power, but, there will be some comments about the trainees as well soon. The other part is the existing projects, right? Some had as an output, just briefly to people who are new to regulatory science. This will be your paper. No one is taking anything away. It is just literally a way to get additional collaborators to contribute from their vantage point. I think, for example, it's very rare. I know Kim, for example, comes with an extremely savvy oncology and pharmacology or pharmaceutical industry background. Brandon has a regulatory background and a mathematical and statistical background. Laura has a background from patient advocacy. Let's say you put those 3 people in a room and let them tackle a regulatory framework. I'm sure there will be, after half an hour, if you get in 3 minutes the project outline, I think after half hour, we cover at least the top bullet points. So I think that's the power of what we're trying to create here. But this is not something where people look for leadership roles or anything. this is really a group to move the field forward and push the boundary by actually doing things, not just talking about it, but took us a while to get there, to get the infrastructure going. Brandon, yes.
Yeah, I want to at least put some of my boundaries on this idea of regulatory framework. That's not really what I can participate in here, but instead I would steer this idea towards an existing regulatory framework and what kind of measurements, what kind of information, what kind of science is needed to support going down a regulatory path. And when I think about the two for a biomarker, you know, you got the drug world and their biomarker qualification program, and you have the device world, which has the medical device development tool, which actually has a qualified biomarker in its portfolio already. And so, you know, I have to stay away from creating regulatory frameworks because that's what the FDA does. We create the regulatory frameworks, and I get in trouble if I use a group like this to try and create a regulatory framework. That's part of the business that I can't be involved in. But the science and the measurements and the data to support some tool or biomarker to follow one of these regulatory paths, that's where I can be a contributing member of the discussion.
Right, and so we can, you know, reword. Thank you again for bringing that up, Brandon. We can reword that to fit within the framework of what we've discussed previously.
And I'll say one thing about biomarker qualification, whether it's the drug or the device world. We have somebody joining my division recently as one of our deputy directors, coming from the Center for Drugs, where she saw a really high bar on the Lasiter side for qualifying a biomarker. And when I described to her the medical device development tool program, she really was shocked at how not as high it was compared to the Lasiter program. And that's because the biomarker that was qualified actually was qualified alongside of the tool that it was used to make the biomarker measurements.
Laura, you wanted to make a comment?
I was just going to ask Brandon, you know, I know it's maybe a little bit of a nuanced wording, but you know, what Friends does frequently when we're writing white papers is not to propose a framework, recognizing, as you said, FDA does that, that's FDA's job. But what we will often say is, well, what, you know, we're bringing together these ideas that could inform FDA's process. And so, you know, I just wanted to throw that out there as potential, like, you know, just word tweaking. I don't think that makes your position easier, Brandon, as far as weighing in on something, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. I think even MDIC, we frequently encounter this issue of using the words framework and guidance. So for guidance, we deviate from the word guidance to probably best practices or something, you know, a minor wordsmith, and same with the regulatory framework. But the statement written here, being shared by Kim, there is insufficient understanding on the regulatory. That part can still stay because we are contributing as a community to address a problem collaboratively, but we won't call it as a regulatory framework. We can call it a white paper or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And the kind of big picture here is the regulatory science. What science do we want to be reflected in the frameworks? And that's the science we want to be working on as a group.
I hope that this was.
So that's very fair.
I think this is a great example on the power of this group, right? Yeah. Like these aspects usually take you one Q sub to figure out from the agency. And I think this is, you know, it's almost like it's informal, but it's very informative, I believe, to sort of shape these elements. And I I just thought this was a great example this morning. And yes, this has to be obviously wordsmith. And then comes the point that Brandon says, like, who can help with this? So again, this is a call to action. If you feel that you can contribute to this, or you're interested in how to derive a biomarker assay from tissue-based sectional for morphology, counting cells, counting macrophages, even if it's not TILs, right? In this case, it's tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. But if you're looking at, I don't know, cancer cells, totally the same sort of principle. And I think that's the power of this approach. So I just thought I wanted to use this one project as a concrete approach. So this document obviously is a, living document for now. It will grow. But I just think we work on sort of introducing this project currently as a separate one from the other work groups, as its standalone project. And if one work group thinks, hey, this is totally in the standards world or in the truthing world, we don't know where that will live ultimately. But I think that's secondary. Like, it doesn't have to fit into one, square box. We just gotta make it work. So, call to action. If someone is interested in this and just wants to contribute, please send an email to Ulla, and then Ulla, I connect you with Kim, and we establish this just as a new project. And if someone just hits the website randomly and says, hey, I really like your project, Kim, there you go. You may have found another collaborator.
Thank you. I thank you all for your input. That's very helpful.
I just put a link to that biomarker qualification summary as something to maybe use as a starting point. I wouldn't, think it's the only pathway forward, but at least it's always easy to start with something.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect. So I think the next item moving forward would be the standards project by Esther. Esther, are you there?
I am. Can you move me to a little bit later, please?
Of course,
I'm just in the middle of, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Jithesh, can I call on you for the MDIC updates?
I hope, yes. Give me a second. Can I share my screen so that I can read from my notes or my document?
Absolutely. You're a co-host now.
Share my screen. Okay. So these are MDIC updates. Some are relevant again, some are, very generic. We have a computational modeling simulation landscape survey happening, which may be relevant to modeling. The imaging aspects too. So if you are enthusiastic about modeling and simulation work in diagnostics and device field, please do submit your response. I'll skip the next one, which is more of a manufacturing study for the manufacturers. Is part of the case for quality program at FDA and MDIC. The third one might be relevant, medical extended reality devices working group. That's new. We have a new working group exclusively focusing on AR, VR, extended reality, medical extended reality. It seems that area is picking up momentum, and we are inviting stakeholders from manufacturers, AI/ML companies, game developers, and so on. So any stakeholders who has got some enthusiasm on the reality, virtual reality, augmented reality side. The group has got a kickoff call on April 20th. So really excited about it. The next one is a tool and on the patient engagement, and which is available as a free download. EFS Express is early feasibility study related resources. That's more of a newsletter. Our EFS program has been really picking up momentum, and a lot of tools, those companies who are thinking about early feasibility study. Fingerstick project is related to in vitro diagnostics. We have a framework. Again, since we are talking about the framework, so we actually go through a public comment period for all our frameworks. So if you are working on IVD side, this might be something relevant for you to provide your feedback. I'll share this list of upcoming events. Some are MDIC events, or some are MDIC partnered events coming up in April through June. And in June, MDIC Annual Public Forum, we're still finalizing few details, but the PICC, our alliance, will have a session dedicated to give all our update. That's June 1st and 2nd virtual meeting. Back to you, Joe.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Jitesh, can you scroll to the top of your
Oh, okay. Hold on a second.
document? There was something about computational pathology. First of all, it looks like it's a link.
Yeah.
And
Link
I'm
list.
guessing this is going to go on our post-meeting page that we have, Joe.
Yes.
Is there any upcoming events where we could advertise or share the registration opportunities to hear more about whatever that is?
For the first one?
Yeah, because I'm sure, I mean, that fits this group in a big way, I think. And I think it'd be great if we
Okay, so the first one
shared that information with the rest of the group.
Yeah, so this is the survey, landscaping survey, and definitely input from this group is going to be valuable, because there are very specific questions exclusively to modeling simulation, but then there are somewhat generic questions aligned, on this topic. So might be, this group represents a very wide and different stakeholder group, stakeholders here. So I will send you the link, and please do provide us input. Now, no events are planned, but once we finish the landscaping, there will be a landscape report shared.
And actually, my eyes maybe didn't focus on the words so closely, because I saw computational, I immediately thought computational pathology.
No.
And then I know you were going to share some information on an MDIC, artificial intelligence and machine learning effort.
Yeah,
But that's not on your list. So because of those things in my brain, I thought that's what this bullet was about.
yeah. So yeah, AIML work group for IVD. They it's a regularly convened group, and I don't have an update from the group for this meeting, but as the group makes there are three sub projects happening in the AIML work group at MDIC. So I'll have a specific update shared with you on a later meeting.
Thanks.
All right. All materials will obviously be provided. So website update probably by the end of the week, depending on how fast we are in putting the video and everything together. The next item on the list, and I won't share my screen, I will just sort of briefly outline this. We had a formal request by a commercial vendor for a meeting, in this case at the, in the realm of digital pathology, for a shared advertisement. They wanted a banner on the website. I think it's pretty clear that we get a lot of hits, and we shared that with some of the parties that we're looking for. And in any case, they asked us whether we could, serve as an advertisement for their meeting. And after briefly double checking with MDIC, we do not want to do this. There are several components and reasons why. I think one is, it would probably not really work with the antitrust law and our rules of engagement. We don't want to favor one vendor or one particular commercial enterprise over another. I think our group is too valuable, and trying to stay away from any conflicts that may be created. I just wanted to outline this. There is a video that we put in our rules of engagement part on the website that explains exactly what territory we're in. It's the pre-competitive space. We don't want to, say, hey, you should go to this meeting or to that meeting. So all the dates that you just saw that Jitesh presented are obviously equally valuable to any of the other meetings, but we're not engaging into, any kinds of like advertisement or formal banners or, symbols or something from the meetings. And I think that is fair. I just thought that I wanted to bring this up in the steering committee to just explain, right, what this means. And I don't know if someone wants to comment on this maybe Jithesh briefly or Brandon, I don't know. Obviously getting engaged with that is tricky.
Yeah,
So-
I think, oh, sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
I was going to say, first of all, Joe, if you have any FDA branding ideas on the Alliance website, that's possible. Obviously, it has to go through our channels first. So Ula and Joe, just park that in the back of your mind. And on these other things, on the rules of engagement piece, you didn't play that today, did you?
We didn't play that today, but it was my understanding that we don't need to play it all the time because
No.
it is part of our rules of engagement, and we can point
Right,
to it.
So, but maybe at the beginning of the meeting, you can just mention it and drop the link in so that people that are new can have easy access and be reminded about it. You don't have to play it, but just that way every meeting starts out as, hey, if you are unfamiliar with our rules of engagement, go here to listen to this video. Because I think it was great that you made a video, and it's going to get lost and die a slow death if you don't point to it once in a while. And I think it's useful.
Yeah, I think, Brandon, that's a good suggestion. I think I wish I could help Joe and Ula a little more. In addition, once we fully integrate with MDIC platform, we will, whenever somebody signs up for us, our work group, we will send this as a package so that they will review and probably they will accept it as agreed, so that we don't have to play it over and over. But okay, of course, we are on the go doing some fine tuning and polishing of our effort. And to the other point Joe mentioned about advertising, for platforms like ours, MDIC or Alliance, we are actually really, we have a wide reach. Others recognize the value of this. So we constantly get solicitations for advertisement and the partnerships, most of them with some kind of pure marketing perspective with no major ROI for Alliance or MDIC. But as a basic rule, we completely restrain from any kind of advertising through our website or through our forum, just to avoid the distraction and keep the unbiased or pre-competitive nature of the platform.
Perfect. So in the same realm of avoiding distraction, we're gonna move on from these tempting offers, but we just gonna abstain from that. I'm gonna share my screen briefly again, just sort of that, because there is the next topic here is again from the working groups, the trainees work group. And before handing it over, I just wanted to briefly say that this group is the newest. It exists, I think, formally since 3/14, 10 days old. It has already a ton of content on here, so please check it out. There are some upcoming events, I want to point to that. And there are 3 group leaders, and it's my pleasure to have hand this over to Julia for a second to kind of outline the developments in this newest work group. Julia?
I guess I have to unmute myself. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so we have, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So since starting the trainee group, I think we have 2, and as we're all trainees ourselves interested in regulatory sciences and trying to kind of provide a platform for other trainees to cover fields in regulatory sciences that are paramount for leadership roles, but are currently somewhat unrepresented in educational programs. So we started the Twitter account. As you can see here by 0 tweets, we're not very active yet. We literally launched that like a couple of days ago, but we're gonna try to be super active and create a good network through Twitter. The second update I have is our first official meeting that we're going to be holding April 2nd at 3 p.m. And please all join who are interested. We have the survey still as our main form of enrollment right now into the trainees group. So feel free to sign up and please join. This is more going to be an organization where we're trying to create a list of what's needed, what seminars we want to create in the future, and brainstorm, especially for our first actual speaker event. And I'm very, very honored to announce that Lakshman will be our first speaker, and we're going to discuss his book chapter. And for that, we would like to collect questions up front for everyone who's going to be joining. Please send us your questions. So that's our two meetings that are upcoming. And like I said, the surveys that we're still holding to get to know, first of all, the trainee members, the new ones that are joining, where people can word their needs or wishes and what they're currently working on. And then we're always looking for experts who are willing to host seminars, meetings, give talks, and have just be there with great advice. So those are my 3 updates.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I just signed up for both and it works really smoothly. So I didn't take the survey yet, but I will try.
Yes, I saw that.
Are there questions for the trainees group? I think Sarah is also part of it. I think Kingsley is currently studying for his board exam, so he has a very good excuse, but I know he's active as well. Question. I think Stephen is asking what was the handle for the Twitter group. So if you could maybe put that in the chat, that would be great. No, but this is very, very exciting. I believe I don't know if we heard back formally from the CAP resident delegates. I know Mary and Kevin are on. I don't know if that trickled through your channels or if that's more with the trainees group, but I believe we have a message going out through that route. So we believe that some trainees at least will join. And to come back to your question from earlier, Brandon, how we're going to increase sort of the workforce, I believe there's a lot of interest in regulatory science approaches for machine learning, for digital pathology, for standardization. So one idea that we floated was, can trainees join the workgroup leads? And I think the answer to that is of course. So that would be great to have this, let's say, additional layer on top of the existing structure, meaning trainees are absolutely welcome to join any or all parts of, the various work groups and projects. Other comments? Then I hand it over to Esther. I think that is the next item. Are you ready, Esther?
I'm ready. Sorry about that, guys. I had to unexpectedly leave home, so I'm somewhere else. But I can present. Ulla was willing to drive the presentation, so that's great, Ulla. Thank you. Can you bring it up? Is it there?
Yep. All right.
Yep. Great. Thanks so much. So last week, Kingsley and the standards working group, we had a call to discuss the standardization for pathology data. And actually what the project's aim is that we would like to create a framework for standardization of data that is going to be used in, for example, clinical studies, so that you can easily perform statistical analysis. If I take, for example, the primary diagnosis studies that were executed by several companies, it was very hard to compare the data and execute statistical analysis on it, because most of the diagnostic terms that are being used in pathology is verbatim text. It's always long verbatim text. And every pathologist uses slightly different terms. So being able to compare that, we needed to have separate adjudication committees to really look at it. Several pathologists being formed as an adjudication committee to look at it and say whether the verbatim text was concordant with the verbatim text of the other pathologist and of the other pathologist. And if you can imagine that you have 16 pathologists reviewing diagnosis and providing diagnosis, that's a tedious task and time consuming. So the idea is to use kind of standards terminology, standard coding terminology for these type of purposes. Thanks. So an example could be is in clinical trials that you use that for your statistical analysis. There is, of course, that benefit. It goes faster. Your regulatory developments goes faster, but also the regulatory review by competent authorities will be facilitated. In addition, we could also use it, for example, in creating standard annotations later on for creating creating data lakes and for standards development of AIs, artificial intelligence tools. So think about, and I have an example there, in drug trials, coding is already being used. It's standard. For example, headache can be coded to a single occasion, like, oh, I have once a headache, I have a migraine, or I have cluster headaches. So and if you look at that, if we can start coding that in pathology, then it becomes so much easier that we all speak the same language for regulatory submissions, but also for product developments. Can go to the next slide. So what we would like to do is identify, so this is the short term, identify existing variables in the CAP cancer protocols, think about the synoptic breast protocols, and create control terminologies. That's a set of code lists and valid values used in the cancer protocols. Then we create a data dictionary, and that identifies and defines each variable identified. So you can easily transfer verbatim text into a code, and then you develop a machine readable data structure. So you can easily execute statistical analysis or use it to feed your training of your algorithm. And also create standard computer programs to derive standard data from different databases. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So my call to action to this steering committee is that we believe that coding will drive standardization and can accelerate clinical studies and eventually also development of algorithms. And therefore we want to create codes, but we need pathologists to help us providing inputs into identifying existing variables in the CAP cancer protocols. We think that takes about 6 months. And then the next step is that we create control terminologies, which take another 6 months. We would like to start this in June, and that's indeed when after Kingsley has completed his board exam, which is in May. So that's why we would like to start in June with this project. So if you want to participate in this work group, please let us know. We definitely can use your help. But before signing up, I would like to ask if there are any questions that need clarifications.
Esther, this is Mary Kennedy. I have a more of a comment. We're in the process of assigning SNOMED, working with SNOMED and assigning the SNOMED codes to the cancer protocols. Yep. So we have a lot of them done already. We're actually doing it with the University of Nebraska, who has a contract on that. So, you know, you and I can talk, but we do have a lot of that work done.
Will those codes be in the public space?
Yes. Yeah, they have, it was going to actually just be in the US release, but it's now been elevated to the international edition. So I think, I'm not sure if they're in it yet. It might be coming out like in the spring in the latest. I can double check that, but I certainly can put you in contact, Esther, with the person who's leading this.
Because I think it's great to think of all the whole slide image viewing companies as consumers of that kind of standard reporting, so that we can have those kind of data collection workflows in those whole slide image viewers. And they're all standardized. That's hugely useful.
Yeah.
So maybe briefly, as a sort of from a pathologist perspective, I think it's fantastic that CAP is taking on the SNOMED CT concepts. There are currently, I think, 4, there are concept codes and descriptions, there's relationships and reference sets. It's fantastic to encode this, but I would venture to say it cannot account for some of the things that Esther has said and stated. For example, some of the free wording or some of the specific requests or p-value pairs that are needed for a certain study, it still has to allow for some flexibility. So I think the project is at least in part covered by that. And I think that is fantastic. But I think for right now, for individual people running their trial, coding that in SNOMED, although there I think are 100,000 of words in SNOMED, I think it may be still valuable to assess and continue and move this project forward. But I thank you, Mary and Kevin, for supporting this, and it would be fantastic to have the CAP as synoptics and protocols with SNOMED codes. That sounds like a breakthrough. Other comments on the standards project?
Yes, I think this is really great. Thanks, Mary. And I think what one of the first steps could be is that we align indeed with what you have at CAP. And then based on that, when we can discuss with CAP and with the pathologists who sign up for this, and maybe also industry, of course, we can all participate. We can then identify what additional things are needed and execute on that. So yeah, feel free to sign up. This is my call to action. Do sign up, please. We do need pathologists. And yeah, the start date, and Kingsley will be driving this project as of June. And I will be a part of the project team. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Esther. This is great. Let's open it up for discussion, public commenting, wishes, suggestions.
Okay, I have one, of course. We heard about a couple of things today, the trainee group in this last project, and then, maybe Kim's, Dr. Blenman's project is still kind of bubbling, but I think these should be communicated to the larger distribution. We're not spamming them so far, which is good, and we don't want to, but I think emails at a little bit more frequent pace would be good to, especially when there's information to share. And I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of the email that has 10 items in it, because then the subject line doesn't tell me anything about those 10 items. I think we should really think about these emails, these communications being real one topic. So one email to the entire distribution on the trainee group, so I can see it formatted that is appealing, and I can then forward it to other networks. And likewise for other projects that are either trying to engage or inform. I think we could be a little more aggressive in there.
100% agree. We're still working on our communication standards with MDIC. Thank you, Brandon, for pushing this forward. Jitesh, I think you heard this. I know we're working on it. We would just not want to have all these emails that are carefully constructed by Ulla end up in a spam. And I think we also want to improve the communication from the different work groups. So instead of creating all these different email sub boxes for the 9 work groups and the total of 17 leads right now, to switch them over to MDIC once we get that accomplished. We have not done this, but it's absolutely on the roadmap, clearly communicated and heard, and we will take care of it. We're working on it. I can't say anything.
Working on it, yes.
Other comments?
This is Renato from Dana-Farber. I just wanted to ask whether it would be possible to have a shared calendar on the website. I had a couple of people from my group attending these meetings routinely, Now one moved to industry and the other one wants to move to another role. And I find myself in the position of not knowing when the next meetings would be, let's say, for the ML and AI group.
So if you go to
there.
news and events, it's there. And all the different work groups that have meetings have put that on here, including, and this is like the recent news, like when these went live, you can see this here, Ulla put this together. I hope that accomplishes what you're saying. I do not know exactly which work group lead is doing which meeting when. That's something that goes a little bit beyond this.
That's perfect.
But
That's
I
perfect.
hope.
Thank you very much for clarifying.
No, of course. This also went live when, Ulla, like last night, or so we've been working since the 314 meeting to accommodate also like there were a lot of like videos and meeting notes here on this particular subsite here. So this took a little bit longer than expected, and there are a ton of videos here. You see also we even put the happy hour on here, but no sensitive topics revealed here. But I'm just saying, like, the news and events is here. If you have news and events, so if you would like to organize a session or a project or just run some ideas by you, please just send it to Ulla. We have sort of a way to like just set this up as, you know, a link, or, you know, for example, for the trainees group, there's a registration form that is then linked to the different group leads. So trying to enable networking as best as we can. But thank you, Renato. It's a great point.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that, Ulla, when is our next meeting? That's a good question. I should have just checked on the calendar, but it's 21st. Is that correct?
April 21st, next steering committee.
So April 21st, we will see this group, but I think there, as you saw, there are a couple of events in between that. And so we almost land perfectly on time. Please let me know if there's anything that you want to do. I think this is definitely moving forward in the right direction, and hopefully we can improve the communication standard as soon as we can. Other comments? Should I stop the recording so we can talk about the real dirty laundry?